I'm straight up off the block, hopped in the phone and pushed the top back. I've been hustling for a long time and I can't stop that. Big like I'm Nick, best believe it, and them all back. Yeah, I be ballin' all the time, I'm point guard and a quarterback.
Shanig, man. Fucking with ASAP Sports Network, man. Tune in, stay logged in, and stay mouthed in. You dig? Yuck mouth. Yada da. Boy!
Homes in the desert.
What's going on, everyone? And welcome back to another episode of the Sports Status Podcast. I am here today with the Red Hot Wreck, also known as DeLorean. Out also from the Northwest. Well, not at the moment, but mostly out from the Northwest.
I currently reside in Denver, but I'm from Portland originally. So,
yeah. How are things going on your side of things?
Well, we recently just got some rain that came through, and I took a small trip to Minnesota. Nice to see a little thundercloud. I've just been all over the place for a little bit, so I'm glad I can settle back down and just get ready for the summer. So,
John says we'll definitely be talking about that, but not yet, not at the moment. Well, actually, not yet, not at the moment. For me, it's been getting better. I've said on the show before, but I accidentally dislocated my knee. But as time goes on, I just found out today I will not need surgery for that. So
that's good news.
I'm pretty excited, and I'll definitely be able to go back to work in the next week. But that being said, going into some of the topics, Colorado just completely they won.
Yeah, it was an up and down series against a team that could do the same thing they could do. So
they won a very high scoring affair, and I didn't see that coming.
I'll tell you something right now. I saw it coming. I mean, it's going to pretty much be like the Toronto-Tampa Bay series. Both of those teams can score out well. Having Nathan McKinnon and Connor McDavid is it's almost as if though we got to see Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux go up against each other. That never happened in the playoffs. There was only 25 career meetings between them in the regular season. Of course, Gretzky was mostly in the West until he played for the Rangers late in his career. And of course, Mario Lemieux, when he initially retired because of Hodgkin's lymphoma, I think it was in '97. It's around the time that Gretzky was playing for the Rangers. But of course, he came back a few years later and finished the rest of his career with the Pens. But no, it's going to be an up and down series. I mean, if you thought that Calgary and Edmonton was kind of a fluke the way it happened, Edmonton can't play defense. So Darcy Kemper got hurt in the first game. That might be able to turn the series because after Binnington got hurt, that might have been the difference of why Colorado was able to win. But no, you said you didn't see that coming. I saw it coming. I think a lot of people could have seen that one coming. It's going to be an up and down series. I basically said before the start of the series, 40 goals total. And I might actually have undershot that because we got 14 tonight.
That's true. We did get 14 tonight. But to be honest with you, I say I didn't see it coming because I thought we were going to get half as many goals. I still think we were still going to get a lot, but I thought we were going to get more like a 4-3 than an 8-6.
That might be a modest result to ask for. And I'll tell you what, if you want 4-3 results, you might be looking probably at about half of the Tampa Bay New York Rangers series, which, by the way, I'm definitely going to be looking forward to when it starts tomorrow night.
Yeah, I am too. Yoel Hyman's actually a New York Rangers fan. He sent me a text yesterday. He sent me a text yesterday and asked me if I was watching the series, and I was pretty excited for it. This is I've been following the NHL since like 2017, and this is the first time seeing the New York Rangers get this far. So yeah, I was pretty excited.
Well, the New York Rangers, they had their little run with Henrik Lundqvist. They got to the Stanley Cup final. They lost to the Los Angeles Kings, which I will say that, Jonathan Quick was probably the big reason why they have any cups to begin with, but Quick is, a good counterpart to my favorite down in Anaheim, John Gibson, of course. I look at the first two games against Carolina. Carolina was very, very lucky that they won those two games. The Rangers were leading all of game 1-0 for the most part. And then they pulled it.
Until that last moment.
Yeah, Aho scored with about 2.5 to go, and then they won the game in overtime. And then guess how they lost game 2? I did some research, and I'm going to be doing a little bit more tomorrow, and I'm going to see if this has ever happened in the Stanley Cup playoffs. But they lost 2-0, but it was a shorthander and then an empty netter to seal the game. I, off the top of my head, cannot remember something like that ever happening. So when Carolina goes on the road to play New York, I was like, well, Boston ripped them to smithereens. They still can't win on the road. Sure enough, that didn't change. New York absolutely they cut them to ribbons, and then we go to game 7, and I'm like, depending on how the game starts, it's going to depend on who wins, and Rangers get a couple of power play goals to start the game. Coming into the midway of the second period, Carolina was able to stop the bleeding. It was just 2-0, but then, of course, they had lost Frederik Andersen. Freddie Andersen had a great season for them. Yeah, well, Freddie Andersen had been hurt since before the playoffs even started. Mm-hmm. And he had the best defensive crew in front of him since he played at Anaheim. And for those that may not know, Anaheim is my team, of course. Seattle is pretty much alongside with them, being a Northwest native. But Antti Raanta, who played down in Arizona, people see those really bad Arizona teams. Yeah, Antti Raanta was playing for them. You probably would think, Arizona would have been a lot worse if Raanta wasn't there. Well, Raanta went out to go. He stretched out, tried to make a stop. He gets hurt, and then not even a minute later or something, Rangers get a third goal, and I was like, it's over. Raanta was able to stop the bleeding. All they would have needed was a goal to get back in the game, and Carolina's got a good home ice advantage, but I say this and I'll say this again. Same thing with Florida. If they win, the fans will show up. If they're not there, the fans don't even bother. And I went, right before the beginning of the pandemic, I went to Hartford Whalers night, and I saw the Whalers in action. So for the simple sake of that game and that game only, I will refer to the team as the Hartford Whalers in case anybody ever gets any confusion like, it was a throwback night. It's like, it's kind of like Groundhog's Day. You're supposed to have a suspension of disbelief for just 24 hours. That's what you teach your kids. So anyway, but no, it was a good series. But just like the Boston-Carolina series, sure, it went 7 games, but it was kind of sloppy. There was a lot of blowouts. And it wasn't one of those series that you were excited about. You're just like, thank God it's over. Hopefully there's a better one to come.
To be honest, not game 5, game 6, game 7 was differently, but I kind of felt like game 1 through 4 for Tampa and Toronto was the same way.
Yeah, Tampa Bay Toronto was going to be an up and down series, and it was a good one. I think Pittsburgh and the Rangers were the best series we've gotten so far. Tampa Toronto was probably, in my opinion, a very close second. But then again, the only reason why I did not put Tampa Bay Toronto over Pittsburgh and the Rangers, triple overtime to start that series. And then the Rangers came from behind multiple times. I want to say in almost every one of those games that they when they were down 3-1, they came from behind. Came from behind again in Game 7, won in overtime in front of the home fans. That was a great series from start to finish. Somebody get out your New York Liberty jerseys because you're going to be having those things for a while. For anybody that doesn't know, for anybody that may not know, the Rangers have like this alternate uniform that has like their abbreviated NYR on them, and it has like the Statue of Liberty head on it. It's a really cool uniform. Look it up.
Yeah, I really like that uniform.
I'm more of an Islanders fan when it comes to New York, and I got a buddy of mine. I think his name is Mark Lancer. He lives over in Long Island. Tells me his mom had dated Mark Gastineau, the New York Jets lesson. So he's a big Islanders fan.
Mark Lancer, he sent me a video. He really wasn't a guest on the show, but he sent me a video, and I played it talking about he's a big New York Jets fan. I definitely know who you're talking about there. And then one last thing that we really didn't talk about too much, but there really wasn't much to talk about, probably because it was a 4-0 sweep. Was it Tampa Bay Lightning in Florida?
Tampa Bay and Florida, well, I look back to the first Battle of Florida. That was a 6-game series. Florida's capable of scoring with anybody. That was no different from the first time around. But then again, seeing the way everybody was going out, just to give a broader picture, watching everybody score the way they did in the NHL. I mean, it was almost like the year. It was look back to when baseball had a year where everybody was scoring runs. That was, of course, the year that Hack Wilson had his 192 RBIs with the Cubs. I can't remember exactly what year that was off the top of my head. It was like 32 or 34, but it had that kind of feel to it where everything was just oddball. It was kind of off. The last couple of years of the pandemic, a lot of sports, I just feel that the really good are really good, and the ones that are good but have had to take some time to build back up aren't quite what they could be. You saw that in college football. And, just to give an idea, I'm not taking anything away from what Florida did, but, we look back to the number of times that people have won the President's Trophy and the Stanley Cup in the last 10 years. And I want to say only the Blackhawks did that. I want to say like once maybe. I think it was the strike-shortened season in 2012, 2013.
Yeah.
But Tampa Bay was going to shut them down anyway, although the turning point of that series was Ross Colton's goal with like 2 seconds to go. After they won Game 2, I thought that it's over, and you can't blame Sergei Bobrovsky. I mean, I given how much the Panthers score, Bobrovsky doesn't have to be a Jonathan Quick. He doesn't have to be a Braden Holtby. He doesn't have to be a Marc-Andre Fleury. But Tampa Bay Florida had 3 goals in that series. They got shut out. Another Andre Vasilevsky shutout to seal the series. I mean, I am a little surprised that Tampa Bay swept them, but that's not out of disrespect to the 2-time defending Cup champions. I thought Florida might get 1 or 2, but I thought, no, I mean, I thought Carolina and Florida were going to be sent packing in the second round. So, I mean, yeah, what else is there to say? You got a bunch of cat stops.
Now, I do have one more question about Tampa before we move
Sure.
on and talk about the other hockey league. Now, there's been an ongoing question. I don't really think so. I think that they're going to make it to the finals, but do you think they're going to win it for 3 years in a row?
That's a really good question, and I'll tell you something right now. It's very doable. It's very possible. I look at the Western Finals. Tampa Bay, I mean, the Oilers will always have a puncher's chance with the way they can score, but Tampa Bay completely shut down the Florida Panthers, and they scored more than Edmonton did in the regular season. They got that 1-3-1 trap, and they know how to display it. I mean, if they shut down Florida, they can sure as heck shut down almost anybody. And if Darcy Kemper is not able to stay healthy for Colorado going forward, I think that I think the greatest threat to the Rangers, to Tampa Bay right now would be the New York Rangers, given how Igor Shesterkin has been playing.
Wow.
He's a Conn Smythe candidate. He's been playing very, very well. I 100% think that the Rangers might be the biggest threat left. And Colorado has shown to have a bit of a leaky defense, and they showed that tonight against Edmonton. Although they gave up a few, but once Kemper left the game, it certainly changed the complex. I mean, they did give up 3. So, I mean, if Kemper can come back and stay healthy, Colorado and Tampa could be a 7-game series right there. And like I said, I can see Ball Arena right from my window, but I'm not expecting to get tickets to try to report for you from there. So. But no, I think it's very doable. I look at everybody's situation. I'm going to go on a limb and say if they can get by the Rangers, I think they can get by Colorado too. But then again, could be Colorado's year. They're putting up banners saying find a way. So they have as good of a chance as anybody. In fact, they've won the most consecutive playoff series since the New York Islanders had their dynasty. So.
Yeah, and this is actually the first time they made it to a Western, NBA's version of the Western Conference Finals.
They made it to the Western Conference Finals for the first time since Joe Sakic had led them there in 2001.
2001, actually before even I was around. And we do have a couple of comments from Facebook, actually. John Suggs is saying that he thought that Calgary and the Stars was the best series so far.
I'll tell you something right now to what John has to say. I actually, for a blip of a second, forgot about Calgary and Dallas. That was a very good series.
I did too.
Now that I think about it, the Calgary-Dallas series got overlooked, and that's a real shame because Dallas and Calgary showed us what playoff hockey is all about. It's too bad the Dallas Stars aren't bringing back their coach, but what I can definitely tell you is this. Now that you think about it, I would still put that as a second to Pittsburgh and the Rangers. And like I said, the only reason why, triple overtime to open the series, and then we had that come from behind comeback against, in Game 7 for the Rangers. And like I said, now that I think about it, Calgary-Dallas is a very close second. There was a number of series that I thought the lower seed should have won. The Capitals, in one of the games they lost against Florida, they had an empty netter to put the game away and it hits the pipe. Florida comes back, ties it, and they lose in overtime. That kind of thing when I was like, Florida is not going to win. They're not even going to get out of the second round. Tampa's going to take them apart. And Carolina, I thought, well, it's like Carolina either gets to the Eastern Finals or they don't make the playoffs at all, it seems like. But no. But to go back to what John said, I probably would put it as a close second because that Calgary-Dallas series was exactly what playoff hockey is supposed to be about. Sure, we got the scoring and the up and down and the left and right, but you have good chess matches. You got coaches tightening it up on defense, and then it's all about the goaltenders,
And he also says if Tampa wins again, Avalanche reminds me of the team that is similar, of a team that was similar that is the Leafs.
Yeah, basically, the way I see that is that Colorado still has problems being able to play defense. So I could definitely see where he's coming from on that point. Heck, they just gave up 6 to Edmonton. Heck, it was 7-6 before they got an empty netter to end the game tonight. So,
yeah, they do. They do. It is sad, but Tampa does have experience, especially since they made it to they won the finals 2 years in a row.
Not to mention, they also signed Corey Perry, a former Anaheim player, in the offseason. Corey Perry literally just helped Dallas get to the final a few years ago. And now that they got Corey Perry, I looked at what he did in the first 3 games, I want to say, of the Florida series. He opened up the scoring. Braden Point was out, and they told Corey, said, hey, we're going to have you play what he does. Corey meshed in perfectly with all the other guys there. And as somebody who has watched him, of course, any Anaheim fan remembers that double overtime game that he had in Game 5 against Edmonton a couple of years back. About 3 minutes to go in Game 5, 3-0 Edmonton. Anaheim scores 3 times. We go to overtime in like 3 minutes. Look that game up. That thing was insane. When I pulled up my phone, my notifications were going off like crazy, and I was like, there is no way they just took that game to overtime. And then Corey Perry, of course, had the double overtime winner. Because I want to say sometime earlier in the game, the Oilers bench had done something to piss him off, and then he ends up getting the double overtime goal. Corey Perry's not somebody you want to play against. The guy's a player. So the fact that Tampa Bay loses Braden Point and they get a veteran like Corey Perry, who's clearly going to have his number retired in Anaheim one day, Tampa Bay looks really, really good. With or without Braden Point, they're going to do well. I don't expect them to lose to the Rangers in anything less than 7. Rangers are going to have to get everything they can for them if they're going to win that series.
And now let's move on and talk about WHL with the Western Hockey League, and let's just say there's been a lot more blowouts in the Western Hockey League than there has been.
Common. It's very common that you see that in junior hockey, especially in the earlier rounds. You got players that are developing. You got guys that are going to be prospects. And the WHL, though, is one place that's very well known for developing talented defensemen. That's what they've been known for doing over the years. You want a good scorer or a typical attacker, go to the Quebec League or go to the Ontario League. So. Oh,
okay. Edmonton is going to the WHL finals, and they will face off the winner of the Kamloops Blazers and the Seattle Thunderbirds. I keep wanting to pronounce Kamloops wrong, but anyway.
It's Kamloops. Yeah, it's Kamloops. Kamloops, little fun fact about them. They had what might be considered one of the few dynasties in the history of winning the Memorial Cup. Now, obviously, if you win the WHL, you have a chance to play for the Memorial Cup, unless, of course, you're hosting the event. That's a little different. But Kamloops won 3 Memorial Cups in 4 years. And you want to know the guy that was leading them? Scott Niedermayer, one of the best players of all time. Okay. Scott Niedermayer played for the Kamloops Blazers back in the day. Seattle, they did have a WHL championship not too long ago, but likewise, in most recent years, the WHL team has not done well at the tournament. I'm still, as a Winterhawks fan, I'm still very bitter. Still think Edmonton got lucky. Hey, Edmonton was the first team to win a Game 7 of the finals at home, and then what do? They go on to win the Memorial Cup, and I was just like, you got to be kidding me. But then again, Edmonton has a very good defensive style of play. Winnipeg was a high-scoring offense, and then those clash contrasts of series, usually the defensive team is going to win. It took Portland, I want to say, like 2 or 3 times to get by the Oil Kings when they finally got the WHL final. But then again, I want to say Curtis Lazar didn't play in that series back then either. But, it's going to be a good series. The Oil Kings, they were down for just a little bit of time, and now they're back up. And Kamloops had a little bit of trouble trying to finish off the Vancouver Giants, who had upset Everett in the first round. Portland probably would be beating Kamloops right now if they didn't choke against Seattle the way they did. They're up 3-2, then they get blown out twice, and I'm just like, they had such a talented team. I looked at some of the most talented teams in their history when Brent Belicky won it for us in '98, and then in 2013 when I got to meet the entire team. But it's going to be a good, it's going to be a good series no matter what. But the way the Oil Kings are playing right now, I'd say that they are the odds-on favorite. But now that the Winnipeg Ice are gone, I think the WHL champion might be able to take the Memorial Cup this year. I know the Quebec Ramparts are looking pretty good. They're trying to finish off Shawinigan in the Quebec League. In the Ontario Hockey League, I haven't even checked yet who's winning that. So, but yeah, it's one of those things when it comes to junior hockey. If you're into it, you're into it. If you're not, you're not. So
now, do you think? Because you said that Portland would probably be winning this. Do you think there would be a closer series than 3-3 tie, or do you? Do you think
is Kamloops in Seattle at 3-3 right now?
Yeah, it's a 3-3 tie.
Okay, so they're going to 7. I think at the very least it would be 7 because Kamloops is not anything to sneer at. But if I honestly think that at best they would have finished them off in 5 or 6. At worst, it would only just be 7 right now. But to answer your question, yeah, Portland was that talented, and they absolutely they were so Jekyll and Hyde during the regular season that it really made me start to believe that, maybe, losing to the Oil Kings would certainly reopen an old wound, but losing to Seattle the way they did, that kind of reopens a new kind of wound that you don't want to have to learn how to close, to put things into perspective. But as far as I'm concerned, I really do think Portland would be. Playing the Oil Kings right now. Although it should be stated, we didn't play any teams in the Eastern Conference during the regular season due to COVID. So everybody played everybody in their own conference.
Especially since out, especially I can see why. Who do you got winning this series?
Talking about Kamloops or Seattle?
Kamloops versus Seattle.
The funny thing is that I thought Kamloops was going to finish Seattle off by that point, but I call it a coin flip. I haven't kept a lot of track over who won what game in what part of the series. So I don't know if it was like back and forth or if there was like a.
Basically, Seattle won every even game. And then
Kamloops so it's been back and forth. Kamloops won 1, 3, and 5. Seattle won 2, 4, and 6.
Yes.
Okay, well at that rate, flip a coin. They're probably playing in Kamloops, so. Honestly, I'm going to have to give the series to Kamloops, but I would be the least bit surprised if Seattle were to pull the stunner because they went on the road to Portland and won that game 7. And what makes me think that they couldn't do the same to Kamloops? So, now that I think about it, nobody's going to be getting by the Oil Kings in the finals, but I'm willing to give Seattle the benefit of the doubt. They went on the road to the Coliseum and beat Portland, so I think they could do it again. I'll give it to Seattle this time. But they're not going to get by the Oil Kings if they do. So
I don't think so either. I really don't think so. I wish they
Portland would.
Nah, I don't. Now moving on and talking about National Lacrosse League. First thing before we get into all these playoffs, do you think that the way they have it set up, where there's 3 games it's the best out of 3, but you only play on a weekend? Do you think that's honestly weird?
I'll tell you something right now. I can understand why. You gotta look at it from another standpoint. You look at the arenas they have to play in. They all have to schedule stuff way in advance. And maybe there's nothing going on, but you never know, because you look at the people that have to put on these events. They could have concerts coming in there. Heck,
Oh yeah.
The Nuggets were in the playoffs. Colorado's in the playoffs. So there's a lot of other things you have to look at. And you also have to look at the fact that the NLL, it's starting to grow, and it's going to have the most, and it already has the most teams that it's ever had. Even when I was following the Portland Lumberjacks, when God of goaltending, hashtag God of goaltending, Dallas Elliott was playing for them. Anybody that wants to, any lacrosse fan that wants to learn about goaltending or just learn about the position, Dallas Elliott is called the God of goaltending for a reason. So I'm giving a little shout out to him. But yeah, best of 3. I mean, it's the question you're aiming at is, do you agree with them being played on weekends? I could definitely see where that comes into play. But then again, I think as we go right now, that's like a 3-week period. Saturday is going to be game 1 in Buffalo. Game 2 is going to be next Saturday, literally right like half a mile from my place. And then game 3 is going to be the week after that. But I don't really like that. You're spreading. It's like it's going to be over a 2 to 3 week period. But then again, given where the league is at right now, I guess it gives us something to look forward to. They get to have a specific date, a little block of time that's completely devoted to that little thing right there, to their game. And it's going to be a good matchup too. But to answer your question, if I really had to give a genuine answer, I don't like it. But given where the league is at, given all the scheduling that's going on with other events and other places, I mean, I don't exactly know what other events are going on at the Key Bank Center in Buffalo, but I know in Colorado that definitely could be a little different. Because the Nuggets were in the playoffs, they're gone now. You got Colorado doing what they're doing. And I don't know what other concerts are going on there. So I think going forward, it definitely will be something they need to look at. And, maybe if the league's popularity can get a little bit more, they can get a slot on ESPN. Heck, arena football took a little bit while to get going before they finally were able to get its, typical ESPN slot. But where the NLL is right now, just take, you take the good with the bad. The Las Vegas Desert Dogs are going to start next year. Wayne Gretzky's part of that ownership group, and they just dropped one of their first uniforms, and it looks absolutely, Fry, shut up and take my money kind of look. So, but if I had to talk about the matchup, Colorado beat Buffalo in their only matchup this year, but it was in Denver. And Colorado has proven once beforehand, even especially with McDaniel, they came back multiple times from multiple goals down. When I went to the game when they played Saskatchewan, they were down 3 goals a couple of times, came back and won that in the fourth quarter. They were down by 4 to San Diego in game 3. They came back in 6 in a row, and then they just took control of the game. So I'm going to expect a really, really good final between the two teams. I wouldn't be surprised if Buffalo took both games and won, but I really honestly think Colorado will get at least a game 3.
I said last week I said that I think that honestly, if Colorado can manage to win, when I talked about this previewing the last round, I guess that's what I'm trying to say. If Colorado was able to manage to win game 1, I thought they were going to win game 2 because it's at home and it's just easier.
They almost won game
overtime game.
The way I see it is that they should have won game 2 against San Diego. I mean, they almost had the Western Conference clinched on their home turf, and we could be seeing the same thing. I mean, Buffalo looked almost unbeatable during the regular season, but they were 14-4. Colorado was one of the losses they did take. And keep in mind, for those that may not remember the history of the league or the teams, my hometown Portland Lumberjacks were like the bottom seed. They won 2 road games, and then they ended up getting to the final with, guess who they lost to? The Buffalo Bandits. Unfortunately, they lost by 1 goal. So sad. They lost by 1 goal, and then we lost the team like I want to say a year or 2 later. But I've heard from other people. I've even heard from Dallas Elliott offhandedly that they might want to bring the Lumberjacks back. So, raise an invisible pint. Here's to maybe bringing the team back. We're going to get a good series no matter what. The league is growing. I think it's great. I think it'd be nice if they could bring a team back to Minnesota, maybe bring one to Kansas City or Boston or Chicago. This is a good league, and I think that going forward, it'll be interesting to see how many teams that this league can support. It's very doable
I think they're going to bring one to Boston because Boston pretty much has everybody else.
It'd be nice if they could bring one back to Portland. You know,
I agree. Portland only has one team that's in the NBA, so I mean, actually, that's not true. MLS, but
they have the Blazers and they have the Timbers, but Portland's on a short list of cities to get Major League Baseball. Heck, go back to like the 1960s, and you may have seen me post about this before, but we were going to build a dome stadium out in Delta Park next to Vancouver. Look that whole thing up. That thing got turned down 25 years to the day before I was born. So I'm still pretty bitter about that. Still am. If I believe something is capable, it should be done. Who cares what politicians say? You know?
Jeez.
No, some people say that I'm the kind of person that I get things done no matter what the cost. So you always got to look at the end game.
If Portland does end up bringing that team back, do you think it's going to keep the same name?
Talking about for NLL?
Yeah, NLL.
Yeah, I would have to think so. I mean, for nostalgic purposes, that would be a really good thing. Like, would it just be the Lumberjacks again? I think it would definitely be doable. It'd be a second incarnation of the team. I don't see any other team. I don't see any other reasoning as to why they wouldn't bring that name back. Heck, I think if the Lumberjacks come back, I'd be a little surprised if Dallas Elliott wasn't involved in some way or shape or form when it comes to that. So, but to answer your question, yeah, I don't see any other name that really should go with it. Heck, if Major League Baseball comes to Portland, probably bring the Beavers name back. So, yeah, we had AAA baseball in Portland, and the AAA team was almost always called the Portland Beavers. We had a single-A short season team that played in the Northwest League. They were known as the Portland Rockies. Of course, that was in between the second and third incarnation of the Beavers. So the current incarnation is actually now known as the El Paso Chihuahuas, although there was some sifting around in cities before it got to that point.
Now moving into the last topic, well, not the last topic, but the last sport to cover, Major League Baseball. Since you did talk a little bit about baseball real quick, I wanted to get your thoughts shifting a little bit closer to the east, not quite East Coast, but a little out east. Cincinnati had a struggle to start up the season, and then
they were 3-22.
3-22.
It's one of the worst. They were like 3-22 to start the season. It was one of the worst. I mean, we're talking like Cleveland Spiders, 1800s kind of bad. Okay. Although if you look at the records now, they have certainly righted the ship quite a bit, but that really goes to show you that when a team is that bad, I mean, that's not even good for them or for the league. I mean, I can understand teams being in last place and losing 100 games, but this was worse. I mean, I can remember when the Diamondbacks and the Tigers nearly broke the 62 Mets record for losses in a season in like 03 and 04. The 03 Tigers and the 04 Diamondbacks were two of the most god-awful teams I have ever seen. And what Cincinnati was doing to start the year was not just replicating and matching that, but making it look absolutely – they made them look like a contender in comparison. It was awful. You know? It's terrible.
And they have that slow start. They go out, throw a no-hitter, but lose.
It has happened a couple of times.
Next thing you know, 2 to 3 days later, they win by 15 home runs against the Chicago Cubs, which I think at the time the Cubs were first in the division, right? Or right. They're pretty up there.
The Cubs have actually done somewhat well. You know, they're in a little bit of rebuilding mode. Chris Bryant is gone. You know, the core from the World Series is mostly gone. So the Cubs are definitely going to be building through their AAA system in Iowa. So, of course, the AAA team is the Iowa Cubs.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, I almost interviewed their play-by-play announcer, actually.
Been to a couple of games out in Principal Park. It's a nice ballpark. Des Moines is one of my favorite places that I've ever lived.
I have never seen that, but I've never been there, but I have seen photos, and yeah, it does look really nice out there.
It's right out there by the river. It's a river from, because Des Moines got a couple of rivers that runs through it. The Raccoon is one of them, so it's like I said, it's a great place. Mm-hmm. So I know that you had you said that the Reds hit 15 home runs in one game, or was it like one series?
No. They beat the team by 15.
Okay.
They
Well,
scored. They scored 20 runs total. It wasn't like, I don't know if it was 20 home runs or if it was 20 like runs.
Probably score 20 runs if it's a way to go by. But
20-5 was the score.
Cincinnati had a huge expectation. Some people were thinking that they might be able to make the playoffs. Had Joey Votto's up there in his years, they were thinking maybe we can get him in the postseason. And what's going on with the baseball playoffs was something that I envisioned a couple of years back before any other expert. We got 3 wild cards. The 3 plays the 6, the 4 plays the 5, and then the first round is a best of 3 where the home team gets to host all 3 games. I envisioned that back in like 2015, 2016. I had seen that. And now that we're finally getting that, it's like perfect. Now the playoffs are becoming accessible to everybody the way it should be. Then people will complain, a team with a losing record is going to beat this team. It's like, yeah, that's like what the New York Yankee fans say when they lose. It's like, hey, if you're mad about losing to a team with a losing record, just play harder and play better. Don't lose to them. That's a real simple equation. That's what the American dream is about. That's what the American dream, going back to us winning the revolution, is replicated in our sports. We like the underdog. We want to give the underdog a chance. We want to sell that hope. Sports brings a city together. Politics will tear us apart. But I think there was like one thing you wanted to bring up. Was it? I think you wanted to talk about the Oakland Athletics situation. Correct me if I'm wrong. I wanted to make sure.
Yes. Yeah. What do you think they should do to increase the number of fans that attend their games?
Well, this was probably the first question and probably maybe the only question. The other ones, as it came to like the NL, the MLB, not MLB, but NHL, that stuff I could just offhanded just kind of put on cruise control and talk about. But this one I definitely wanted to think about because I can get a really good answer. In no shape, form, or reality is there anything they can do. Okay, they have taken a line and drawn it in the sand and said, we're going to get our ballpark in Oakland or we're going to go somewhere else. And until that happens, we're going to make life a complete living heck for anybody that goes to the Coliseum. I mean, let's be honest. Here's what I will say. If there was one thing, if I could throw out something, even though I know it may or may not help, get rid of Mount Davis. Yeah, you know what Mount Davis is, right? That big section of seats that was right there in the outfield. I mean, you go back to the days in Oakland, win or lose, they had one of the nicest looking ballparks in the league. You had that view of the hills and everything. Scenic ballparks are all a thing, But and I say this jokingly, get rid of Mount Davis. That's the one thing I would do. But then again, I don't think there's anything they can do. They fire sold off a bunch of members of the team. Bob Melvin, their manager, who was a very good manager, he's now in San Diego, making them really, really good. They're basically saying that if you don't give us a new ballpark, we're going to go to Las Vegas. They've made it very, very clear that they have no intention on improving anything. Everything is. I mean, it's like you look at that sign that says "Rooted in Oakland," and you can look to your kids, draw a little political cartoon, and say, look at this sign now because we're going to be looking back at the good times later on, kind of thing. They've drawn a line in the sand. They're not going to improve anything. This is very. I mean. There's somebody that I would definitely suggest looking at for anybody that wants to do research. There's a guy by the name of Neil DeMoss. He runs the website Field of Schemes. He could definitely, he could talk about this thing better than I could, but this is a very classic ploy that a lot of teams like to do with their fans. They tell cities and municipalities either cough up funding. They give all sorts of reasons like, we can't be competitive unless we have a new ballpark. And, we can't play well unless we have this nice, shiny little new toy kind of thing. But, there's nothing you can do. Either they're going to get a ballpark in Oakland or they're going to get one in Vegas. And if they do get one in Oakland, they're going to kind of be suffering anyway. And even if they do get a new ballpark, what makes me think they're not going to continue fire sailing every couple of years or something when they don't want to pay players? They've had lots of good stuff. Huh?
They need to stop doing that.
Easier said than done, especially when there are.
That's 100% true, but they still need to stop.
Well, put it this way, okay? Bud Adams, go back to that. I'll throw back the clock a little bit. Not 10 years after Bud Adams got subsidies from Harris County in Houston to keep the Oilers in the Astrodome by expanding it and everything, he wants to get a brand new stadium. And the city of Houston and Harris County were like, no, bud, we just did that like 10 years ago. Basically, he threw a tantrum, and that's why now we have the Tennessee Titans. And to this day, I still think it's terrible that Amy Strunk Adams and the rest of her family will not give the Oilers name back to the city of Houston. It's like nobody wants to go watch the Houston Texans lose, but everybody will pay to watch the Houston Oilers win or lose. I'm being honest. Love you, Blue. There is a reason why. There's a reason why I have said that the Titans have the curse of Bud Adams and cannot win the Super Bowl. You screwed over one of the best logos in the history of the world. And now look at what Amy Adams Strunk is doing to Nashville. They've had that stadium not even 25 years, and they're already trying to get another one built. I mean, have you looked this up? I'm just like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous. But anyway, kind of going off on a tangent. But then again, this is just millionaires trying to play with the hearts of an average Joe and say, well, I can sell you this hope, but you have to do exactly what I tell you, or I can just go sell hope somewhere else. This is all a psychological, emotionally manipulative ploy to get a stadium. And let's be honest, Las Vegas already took the Raiders away. They could very well do the same to the Athletics. It's just too bad the A's aren't moving to Portland, because I would have been like, yes, we'll pay the money. Please come here. I will admit, I'm guilty. Some people will put up their tax money because they love sports and they were raised to watch games. And some people, we could use that money for roads and for schools and for public safety. But like I said, it's a lot. It's different wherever you go. And especially in California, and it doesn't matter when it comes to the political process, it's very difficult to get anything done. And there's a very, very long process. But it isn't like Oakland hasn't tried over the years to get a new ballpark. They had one in San Jose. That Cisco Field project, that was a very nice-looking ballpark. It would have been very reminiscent of Camden Yards in Baltimore with, like, the building in the background. That was a nice plan. It was a very nice-looking one. But the Giants came in and were like, no, San Jose's our territory. You can't do that. MLB help us out. They did. They couldn't build the park. They tried to build something out near Laney College, where the USL Championship pro soccer team, the Oakland Roots, and soon to be the Oakland Soul USLW League team play. So it's not like Oakland hasn't tried. So I could see it from one standpoint of Oakland getting another ballpark, but I can also see it from a standpoint of, you get rid of the team. You're getting rid of all your best players. Your coach leaves. You're raising ticket prices for a terrible team that is going to finish in last place. And you're basically holding everybody hostage until you get your way. And let's be honest, when that new ballpark opens up, if it does open up in Oakland, raise a hand if you think that the prices are not going to be cheap. Okay? And I raised my hand without even thinking. So there's nothing. I mean, aside from getting rid of Mount Davis and at least trying to restore the original beauty of the park, there's nothing I think Oakland can do. I think they've already drawn the line in the sand. They've already said this is what we're going to do. So, well, they burnt the ship. So there's really no going back.
Now, so if they decide to move to Las Vegas, I really don't think that would be the smartest idea, because I feel like Las Vegas is one of the biggest places out there to travel. So when there's teams out there like Golden Knights, let's say for 1 year, they haven't really hit. This is the first year that they have missed the playoffs. But let's say 1 year they're bottom dead last. Who's going to be able to watch their games if they decide to go and play the Buffalo Sabres or Detroit Red Wings? Somebody else that's also around that bottom dead last? Nobody.
I don't know if we should necessarily go to that conclusion yet. The Golden Knights have been around for a few years, and granted, they narrowly missed the playoffs, mostly because of their own self-inflicted wounds. But then again, Vegas did this to themselves, okay? They were in position to make the playoffs, and if they would have made the playoffs, they would have been like St. Louis. St. Louis gave Colorado fits until Bennington went down. And I'll tell you something right now, if St. Louis was playing the Oilers, I'm not so certain the Oilers would be scoring 4 or 5 a game. I mean, look what Tampa Bay did to Florida. St. Louis was capable of shutting down Colorado. Colorado was going to have to play some good old playoff hockey to get by that, but Bennington going down probably might have helped a little bit. But I mean, everybody's going to Golden Knights games, and now they got their the Henderson Silver Knights playing down in Henderson, and now there's been a lot of trending of them getting their own ECHL team. Granted, the Savannah Ghost Pirates are going to be an expansion team that Vegas is going with for now, but I think going forward, everybody's been hashtagging and rumoring that Reno Bronze Knights for the ECHL, and there's already been uniform concepts drawn up, and I'm probably going to get one built for myself, but it's hard to say. Even though Anaheim hasn't been playing particularly well, they're still getting about 15,000 a game. And Anaheim mostly doesn't have very bad years. Even in their bad years, you're still getting close to sellouts. You will get sellouts against teams like when the Kings come to town or when the Blackhawks or the Detroit Red Wings or something. But even in an empty night for them would be 14 to 15,000. And Anaheim has one of the smaller arena capacities in the league at like 17 something. So
we have a lot of comments coming in, mostly talking about the MLB, but there's a little bit of some NHL ones as well. The Avalanche make it to the Chuck is giving out his prediction. He thinks the Avalanche will make it to the finals, but Tampa will be the team to beat.
I agree with that. Absolutely, 100% agree.
I hate to agree with it, but I agree with it. Toronto Blue Jays are on hot streak. Do you think they will catch the Yankees by mid-June? And also, Nate, is your team really in that second spot, only 2 games behind?
Boy, no. I'll tell you something right now. The Toronto Blue Jays are here to stay. When they had that run just a couple of years ago, it only took them a couple of years to reload. Vlad Guerrero Jr., I think he might have a better career than his dad. Okay, Vlad Guerrero Jr., I was like, when he comes up, when Craig Biggio's kid comes up, the Blue Jays are going to be hot. Now, Boston is going to be up and down. I mean, Boston's been last place, won the World Series. So the Red Sox can do whatever the heck they want. They have a new ownership group. So the Red Sox will do what the Red Sox want to do. Okay. But I still think the Yankees are a little bit – I just don't think they're for real. Do I think that the Blue Jays could catch them by mid-June? I think it's possible. We'll have to see. It also depends on the games that they play. Although I will say this. I don't know, but I know that if they play games against Baltimore, who lost to Seattle 10-0 tonight, it's possible. The Blue Jays are one of the top 5-6 teams in the MLB, in my IMHO, in my honest opinion. So I think it's doable. Very doable. If any team can do it, Toronto can do it.
I agree. But looking at this from the Yankees side, yearly they have this I don't want to say curse, but curse.
They've had some injuries, but they either struck out or they hit home runs. That's it. And that, they really haven't learned how to play. I mean, even the Yankees of the days that had Jeter and, even in the 2000s, in the 90s, they weren't just about hit home runs or strike out. Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge are both strikeout or hit home runs kind of guy. And, that's kind of like when Oakland had designated hitter Jack Cust at the time. Yeah, it's just not my kind of thing. Even Griffey knew how to hit stuff off the walla back in the day when they played with the Kingdom. So.
And then John brings up another Major League Baseball comment. He says, what has gone wrong with these Red Sox these past 10 games? The Orioles and now the Reds?
Yeah, the Red Sox have known for the Red Sox are just that kind of special. I mean, here's the way I see it. I'm willing to go on a limit. I mean, every team has had moments where they lose to anybody. I mean, you have 30 professional teams in Major League Baseball. So if you guys are pro, you guys have made it there for a reason. Okay, you guys are the best of the best, the best in the world. And there's probably a handful of players playing elsewhere, like in Nippon Professional Baseball in Japan. The Yomiuri Giants are my favorite team out there. But we act like it's a complete travesty, and maybe it kind of is, but you have to understand you're playing against everybody else is playing against everybody else. It's making millions of dollars. And, they're getting paid for a reason. These are the best of the best of the best. I mean, Cincinnati, I'll be honest. I couldn't believe that they were that bad. And now they're like a couple of games back of the Cubs. I want to say they're like a couple of games out of not being in last place. And, well, the Orioles, they still haven't been good since they made the American League Championship Series a couple of years back, but you wonder how long it's going to take for the Orioles. I think that it won't be too long now, but Cincinnati being as bad as they were kind of shocked me. But now they have a little bit more of a respectable record, and well, some teams do really, really bad, some teams do really, really well. Heck, the 116 win Mariners had some times where they weren't doing so hot either. Heck, I want to say they had a losing streak to end the year and missed out on the record of the 1906 Cubs. So,
yeah, I think every team, it's too early to actually say that like what team's going to make the playoffs and what team's not. It's May, just about to hit the second month of baseball. So I mean, we kind of get an idea, but we really won't get an idea until really when All-Star break happens.
let's just hope we don't have the All-Star game relocated again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wasn't living in Denver at the time that happened, which is too bad because I definitely would have gone to the events. I did go to the home finale for the Colorado Rockies last year, and that was literally like the day that I moved to Colorado. I looked up and checked up and found out their home finale was being played that day, and sadly it got rained out and I left, and turns out they came back and won after I left. I was like, oh, thanks guys, appreciate that. And I live in downtown Denver. I live a very short distance away from the ballpark. So,
and he also says that Oakland should just move to another city.
I'll tell you something right now. That's a very, very legit possibility. Another team that could end up relocating to is Tampa, because Major League Baseball, it's no secret they want to expand, and I will trumpet my hometown of Portland to the day I die that they are a baseball town. Guarantee they're a baseball town. There is no better potential ownership group than the Portland Diamond Project, which is being led by a former Nike CEO and Craig Cheek. I don't know if he was the CEO or not, but then you got former Blazers broadcaster Mike Barrett. I love Mr. Barrett. I have loved watching him for years and years. Russell Wilson and his wife Ciara are also part of that group. There's a lot of star-studded power. They haven't revealed anybody yet because they don't want to show their whole hand until they feel that they need to. And of course, a couple of years ago, they had a rendering of a ballpark that was going to have a retractable roof and a glass dome. It was very, very, very nice, but Major League Baseball is going to want to expand. Owners get all that money from the expand. Each team gets a cut of the expansion money. Each get a little cut from a pie that adds to their wealth, right? So they definitely want to expand. We have the talent to sufficiently put those teams there. There's going to be more minor league teams, more minor league markets get to have a chance, because now we're down to AAA, AA, single A high, single A low. So if you have 2 expansion teams, you got 8 more minor league markets that are going to have a chance to play wherever they want. That's always going to be fun. And, cities are going to definitely try to bid. Nashville's been talked about. I honestly think if we're going to do 2 expansion, unless somebody relocates to Montreal or Portland, I think those are going to be the places that would be best suited. If Tampa Bay does, Major League Baseball wants to get Tampa and Oakland stadium situation figured out before they expand. They've said that multiple times, and honestly, I think that if whether Oakland moves to Vegas or not, I really honestly think the Rays should move to Montreal. I think that's another great thing, because then if you move the Rays to Montreal and they're in the American League East, you got Baltimore, Boston, New York, and then Toronto, Montreal. That's just that little clip right there, because the Rays have been winning and nobody's going to games, and they're like, well, and I can understand the reasons for not being able to go to the games because of the location, but it's like, you know what? Give me a break. What about everybody else that's near Pinellas County and in St. Petersburg? Okay. How are you guys winning almost 100 games a season? And you guys are only getting 9,000 fans a game. And your biggest excuse is not being able to get off work and get it through traffic and everything. Come on. St. Peter, the whole metropolitan area has at least a couple million people. You can fill that ballpark. I'm sorry. That's not an excuse. It's the same thing I tell the Arizona Coyote fans, and I will be it'd be a sad day for hockey if they get that arena plan approved for them and keep them in town. Anyway, but yeah, Oakland moving to Las Vegas is very doable. It's not going to be Portland, unfortunately. I mean, theoretically be a runner-up in that race at the way this is going. But yeah, the A's are going to move to Vegas, or they're going to stay put in Oakland. There are city council votes coming up in June, so it'll definitely be something to keep their eyes on.
I think that's what's going to happen, but I also think that neither should happen. I think they should move, but I don't think Vegas should be the answer.
You think the A's should move, but not to Vegas, but you think the A's are going to move?
Yes.
To clarify, you think the A's probably will move to Vegas, though you think they should move to, but not to Vegas. That definitely would make sense, especially with the NBA likely going to expand Seattle. Well, we don't even have. I mean, that's a whole talking about the Sonics and then moving to Oklahoma City. That's a whole other episode for your show.
I will be covering that on a different episode, probably this Saturday. But
they want to expand to Vegas, but I just wanted to mention this very quickly. While Vegas might be the popular choice, they need to expand to Kansas City. I think Kansas City would be Kansas City's a basketball town. If you've been to the T-Mobile Center, especially, I had mentioned to you before our broadcast that I went to a Comets game last season, and it was at the T-Mobile Center. It was the highest attended game of the entire league season with like over 6,500 fans. The College Basketball Hall of Fame is like right next door. So that's my 2 cents.
Never been to the state of Kansas, so no, I haven't been.
Kansas. It's actually in Missouri. It's actually Kansas City, Missouri, but little known fact, there is a Kansas City, Kansas on the opposite side of the border.
Yeah, because it's pretty much the same city, but there's a divider in between both.
Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri are actually separate cities and metropolitan areas, believe it or not.
Oh.
Yes, there is a KCMO and a KCK. Talk to the locals, they will tell you that.
I did not know that. Is it the same way in the now I've only been through there once, but isn't this the same thing with Texarkana?
I can't make that comparison because I don't know about Texarkana. I could not make a comparison because I myself would not know. So I couldn't answer that. It's one of those I don't have I'm not knowledgeable enough to give a straight answer on that. Wouldn't be fair to me. Wouldn't be fair to me or that city for that matter.
And so talking about NBA locations, I think Kansas City, I agree with you on Kansas City. The other one, Seattle's another one, but then the one that you haven't mentioned that maybe could be a possibility, especially since they have the 3 out of the 4 major sports out in that area. What about Pittsburgh?
Boy, that's another one that does ultimately get brought up, but here's the way I see it. Now, Pittsburgh did have an ABA team. They were known as the Pittsburgh Pipers. They did win some ABA championships. But Pittsburgh doesn't.
I remember studying it.
Yeah, Pittsburgh doesn't really, for those that might not remember, this is a turn ahead the clock jersey, not jersey, but hat for the Seattle Mariners. Remember that turn ahead the clock campaign they had? Mm-hmm. This one's pretty much impossible to find. I found it on eBay and it's been anyway. To answer your question, they could. You know, there's a lot of cities that get thrown out there that could have an NBA team, but St. Louis is almost on that same par where I think, sure, it could happen, but do I think it's going to happen? No. Pittsburgh doesn't need the NBA, and I hate to say that in that way, but they've already got the 76ers. Pittsburgh has really not had pro basketball out there since the ABA. They haven't really needed it. They got the Steelers and the Pirates and the Pittsburgh Penguins. They carry it around the clock. And then, of course, one of my favorite USL championship squads, the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, play out at Highmark Stadium. So, yeah, Pittsburgh doesn't get brought up a lot, but for a good reason. Could they? Yes. Do I think it will happen? Not really. Sure. I mean, but let's be honest. That whole arena, I mean, heck, they had the Pittsburgh Power arena football team before they got the NBA. So, I mean, it's on the same category as St. Louis. Could it happen? Sure. Do they have the building to do it? Yeah, but is it going to happen? Probably not. And I don't think Pittsburgh really is hurting for it. So maybe I'm wrong. I mean, they're for every person like myself that says I don't think they're hurting for it, there might be some people that say, yeah, we'd love to have one, but I don't think Pittsburgh's a pro basketball team. I mean, Pittsburgh's a pro city, but basketball takes an absolute backseat to the Steelers, who are leading the charge head and head with the Pirates, and with the Pens, I should say, and when they start to play well, the Pirates. So the Pirates haven't been good for years, but even then, you could bring an NBA team, and long term, I still think the Pirates would be better than any NBA team you brought in the building. That's just me. If I could put a list of 10 cities, Pittsburgh probably would be on the back burner, if not permanently, when it comes to an NBA. I mean, it'd only be like an emergency backup option. St. Louis is probably a little bit higher because they did have the ABA spirit. Yeah, the ABA had the spirits of St. Louis. And let's also be honest, Major League Soccer is getting a team in St. Louis too. So St. Louis also – huh?
Not to mention there's the Cardinals out there too.
They had the St. Louis – they had the football St. Louis Cardinals, correct. And some of the best players that ever played for that franchise played for them during that era. Neil Lomax, he's from Lake Oswego, Oregon. They had Larry Wilson, probably one of the best safeties of all time. They had some good players back in the day. You know, Neil Lomax ran the run and shoot, played Green Bay in a playoff game. That was a very high scoring affair. You know, that was always a good story that I like to tell to people back in the day. But St. Louis also had the NBA. The Hawks used to be in St. Louis. They actually, when the Celtics had their dynasty, if you look at the years the Celtics won a championship, one of those years was interrupted by the St. Louis Hawks. It's a true story.
Yeah, and I also think Bill Russell, he was drafted by the St. Louis, by St. Louis, then traded to the Celtics.
That I didn't know. I guess I'll have to look more into that. But
I don't think he's ever won a championship with the Hawks, but he definitely. I don't. Now that I remember this correctly,
I thought he spent his whole career with the Celtics, and he retired. I want to say he retired in 1969, but right after Red Auerbach retired, he coached, I think, the last couple of years and played for them too. He was the player coach.
Now, okay, so actually he played his whole career with the Celtics, but he actually was drafted and then traded the same year that he was drafted.
I guess I'll have to look into that, but like I said, going back to your original argument with Pittsburgh, I just don't think Pittsburgh is an NBA town. I just don't think they are. Just isn't. Might have. I think there should be exhibition games there, and maybe once in a great while, the 76ers or somebody could have an exhibition game out there. But then again, it's not a pro basketball town. So,
now bringing up two other comments before we give this a close. One, actually, I'll bring this one. I'll scroll up to the next one. So the next NBA city, his ideas are Seattle, which we talked about, Louisville.
Louisville's definitely one that I think is near the top of that list. St. Louis, Kansas City, and Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach is a very, very interesting situation because back in the day in the ABA, I got friends of mine texting me, told them not to text me, said I was in the middle of a podcast. So anyway, sorry about that. Probably just a prank. Anyway, so Virginia Beach would definitely be on my short list if I could make it happen. Virginia had the Squires back in the day. How many people would want the Virginia Squires to come back? I would. When anybody thinks of the ABA, the Virginia Squires were one of the most well-known franchises that played in the Virginia Beach, Norfolk area. I think that would be I think that's a very underused market. You know, there was a time that the NHL there was somebody that tried to bring the NHL to Hampton Roads, Virginia, and they would have been called the Hampton Roads Rhinos or the Raging Rhinos. Yeah, look us up online. Look up Hampton Roads Rhinos NHL concept jersey. They had jerseys and logos designed. I mean, I'm not even kidding, but Virginia Beach would be a great place. You know, already mentioned St. Louis. Louisville is definitely very high on my list. If I had to rank those five, I would have to put Seattle, that's a given, and then Kansas City. And then a little bit lower than that is Louisville, and then Virginia Beach just a little bit lower, not by very much, and then, of course, St. Louis. Virginia Beach had the Squires back in the day, and they have the population and the core to make it happen. And Virginia Beach is one of the nicest looking locations in the country. You know, you got a lot of U.S. military. You got a lot of people that were in the military. Virginia's got a lot of old money in that area. They could definitely support it. They definitely could have corporate support. Louisville, that's been shortlisted many times beforehand. They could play the KFC Yum Center in downtown Louisville. Louisville's got a great college basketball town. Denny Crum and the Louisville Cardinals won a couple of championships playing out of Freedom Hall down there. I was in Louisville visiting for a short time, so I've been out there. Kansas City and Seattle, we've already talked about.
Yeah, we already talked about both of them.
Yeah, but Louisville and Virginia Beach, I mean, and I've said this to people beforehand, at some point I think pro sports leagues will eventually go to 36 and 40. I don't think 32 is going to be the stopping point, because if people have money, people come forward with money. You know, Qui-Gon Jinn said in episode 1, free can be a pal for ally, and it can be. So I don't think 32 is the magic number. I think if there's money to be made and there's money to be had from somebody in their hand, they can get in this little elite club. You know, it's possible.
And then the last topic I'll bring up before I close this. This is actually going back to the baseball side. What about North Carolina? You have teams like UNC, Duke, NC State. Hockey Hurricanes' closest team would be Washington or the Atlanta Braves.
Carolina needs to relocate. The Hurricanes need to relocate. I know that's going to piss some people off, but Carolina, I've been out there for a while. I've went to games. One of the most uneducated hockey fans I have ever seen in my life are Carolina fans. That's like, I'm going to keep some of my comments filtered, but I'm going to be like, I have never seen so many uneducated people in my life attend a hockey game than when I went and saw the Whalers play that night. But when it comes to pro baseball, Charlotte is definitely one of the. I mean, I look at 4 cities that have a short list of getting a team in. Obviously, they're going to want to build one. They're going to have, Portland's one, anything west of the Mississippi. Although Vegas is going to be there too. But then again, you got Montreal, you got Charlotte, and you got Nashville. Charlotte, in my honest opinion, after Montreal and Portland, I think Charlotte is another place that would be really good. I haven't heard of an ownership group, and the Charlotte Knights AAA team often sells out quite a bit. Do I think that Charlotte would do well in the MLB? I think so. I only don't want it to happen because I would personally like to see Portland not get left out. But then again, Charlotte is one of the few cities that I think rivals Portland's availability when it comes to getting an MLB franchise. I don't think Nashville has put stuff out there in the media, but I don't think they really have the core pieces together. Charlotte's the only is like the third city outside of Portland and Montreal that I think would do well. And yeah, UNC's baseball team has lost to an Oregonian team twice in the College World Series final, lost to Oregon State twice. Those are the only 2 times North Carolina ever made the finals, so bad luck for them. Heck, Arkansas's baseball team was a pop-up, was a ball gets popped up in foul territory, guy drops it, and would have won the College World Series for them. Oregon State came back, took the game into extra innings, and then won game 3. That is a real pain in the butt thing to have happen, but going back to what that gentleman's statement was, pro baseball could do well in Charlotte. I just don't know who they have lined up to get all the cards and everything done. Considering that David Tepper is literally wanting to get the Carolina Panthers a new stadium, there was an issue in Rock Hill, South Carolina, trying to get the practice facility built. So there's always going to be political hurdles. But yeah, Tepper was able to get Charlotte FC to MLS, but then again, he's the single richest NFL owner. MLS needed their 30th team, and well, he fit the bill, and they didn't have to build a new stadium for it. So, and now they obviously have turf built over there, so you never know. Crazier things can happen, but yeah, Charlotte is definitely behind Portland and Montreal on my list when it comes to MLB. So, but as I've said before, Carolina fans only show up when they win. When they weren't winning, they were already being shortlisted to relocate. And only because Gary Bettman doesn't want the team to relocate. And I really do think a lot of it has to do with league politics when the Whalers relocated. So that's my 2 cents about that, although I think I gave more than just a bag of change. So
that's pretty much just wraps about the show. Thank you. Thank you, DeLorean, for hopping on. Anything else before we give this a close?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. So
now, as for announcements for this show, again, a normal time for this show is at 10 p.m. 10 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Saturday nights. However, because of the content this week, we actually decided that I wanted to split this into 2 different episodes. But this Saturday, definitely be covering teams on my NFL power rankings from 9 to 16. I had to think about that for a second. 9 to 16, I'll definitely be covering that little portion, covered from 16 all the way down to 32 in the past couple of weeks. So make sure to check out this Saturday.
I know there's one team that's definitely not going to be 9 through 16. I can guarantee one team is definitely not on that list. That's the one that I support.
Oh.
I'm a huge Packers fan, so I'm actually going to go to the Dallas game on November 13th. It'll be my first game at Lambeau. I am probably going to break down crying when I finally get to the stadium. I mean, I have, Reggie White to this day is still my hero. Hell, just look at the time that he just took Larry Allen and folded him up like tinfoil when they played the Cowboys on the road. That's not a man. He was a good Christian role model for me when I was a kid, and win or lose, I will always support that team. But yeah.
Now, I got to confess something. I have never been to an NFL game. I've
been to a preseason game, but when Green Bay played in Seattle in 2010, the season they ended last winning the Super Bowl, by the way. I have been to an NFL preseason game when Green Bay played the Seahawks in Seattle, but that's about it. So I've been to an NFL game myself.
I've been to one WHL game and then tons.
I've been to a handful.
Baseball.
I've only been to one. I've been to 2 Major League Baseball games, and they were both in Miami when the Dodgers were in town. Let's see. The second of those games was when Kershaw was pitching. Kershaw, and I'll tell you something right now. I saw him play 5 2/3 perfect, and then he gave up a clean single. He pitched like 6 or 7 innings, and it's like he didn't even have to try. This was a bad Marlins team. So I've actually got photographs from those games. So it's actually pretty nice.
For some whatever reason, tons of the Rangers games that I've been to like a lot of Rangers versus Mariners games when the Rangers were at home. And then I've been to a lot of Rangers versus St. Louis Cardinals. Especially, I think I've been to a World Series one, but I don't remember if it was World Series or not.
I think you would know. I think you would remember if it was a World Series game or not. October, you got 50,000 screaming fans. I think it's pretty hard to forget that.
True, but I was 10, so
guess you'll have to ask who took you.
And then I also remember going to a lot of Rangers versus Twins games.
I almost went to a St. Paul Saints game before I moved out of Minneapolis, but that didn't happen. And Twins got a nice ballpark downtown. That's a great place, And the fact that the St. Paul Saints are now their AAA affiliate, one end of the light rail green line. Funny thing is that if you've been to Minneapolis, they have like the light rail there. The green line starts in downtown Minneapolis and goes all the way like to near Union Station in St. Paul, where you can like take the Amtrak and take the Empire Builder and where the Mega Bus is. And on the St. Paul side, the Saints Stadium is nearby, and then you have. In fact, Target Field is the depositing station, although they are currently expanding the Green Line to go down to Medina. Of course, there's cost overruns, lawsuits, investigations. Yeah, a whole bunch of light rail politics that's not quite as bad as the one they're having down in Hawaii right now. If you ever go to Hawaii, they actually are building a light rail right now. They have been for the last so long. So anyway, yeah. Texas got a brand new ballpark. I mentioned you can't. Oh, let's just put it this way. It looks exactly like the Astros ballpark. They literally copied the Astros. You have to at least see some of the incredibility, especially when their last ballpark was actually pretty nice. It was a nice piece of architecture. But then again, when you're playing like in Florida or Texas and it's really hot, nobody wants to be out in the sun. Houston got their ballpark built with a retractable roof. So
I've never been to a new Texas Rangers one, but that's because COVID hit when they got their new stadium. And then shortly around August of 2021, we moved. So I
I've been told that it's really expensive to go there, but I'm like, yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me. You know,
it's new stadium, so yeah, it makes sense.
I was going to go to opening night for the Seattle Kraken, but something happened and I was out. I had somebody cost me about a good $3,000 to $4,000. I was going to go to that, and I was going to go to the Oregon Ducks when they played in Columbus against Ohio State last year. And man, oh man, I don't know. My friend said, yeah, the reason why God didn't let you go to that game is because you would have been lit on fire after the game because after Oregon won. So, and I have an Oregon Ducks Letterman jacket back in my storage in Oregon, so it's pretty fun. Anyway, well, Nate, I do appreciate you bringing me here on the show. It's been a blast.
Yeah, it's just about to wrap it up. This has been another episode of the Sports Status Podcast with your host, Nate the Great, special guest DeLorean. And I'll see you guys on Saturday.
Shanig, man. Fuck with ASAP Sports Network, man. Tune in, stay logged in, stay mouthed in. You dig? Yuck mouth. Yada da. Boy!
Hey, I'm straight up off the block, hopped in the phone and pushed the top back. I've been hustling for a long time and I can't stop that. Big like I'm Nick, best believe it, and them all back. Yeah, I be ballin' all the time. I'm point guard and a quarterback.